Good morning, guys. So today I figured I'd keep going in sharing why I'm moving to New Zealand and kind of all of the reasons and how I got there, because there's a lot. And we'll see if I can get all of them in this video. Maybe, who knows? Sometimes ideas come up, and yeah. So, how it all started was kind of two major things. First one being that I shut down my business that had basically been my life for the better part of 3 years, uh, where that's all I did. I didn't have hobbies, I didn't see many friends. I was just really focused on trying to build this business, and it just came to a big roadblock where I could go one of a couple ways. I could either go almost deeper into it, or decide it was time to shut it down. And that's the decision I made. I'll probably do a video on that as well because there's a lot there. But yeah, so I shut the business down after quite some time of struggle, and even the very last few months where the struggle was probably the most intense in terms of just my personal life and struggling with making that decision and kind of how to move forward. But after I made that decision to shut down the business, I felt very relieved and much happier. And then it was just a matter of kind of tying up the loose ends a little bit, and then kind of going through the what am I going to do next bit. So as I was kind of navigating that part, which was like trying to figure out work and how to make money and what I want to do with my life, and in terms of like I've been better. Like I like asking these big questions, but I'm also better at being practical. So it's not what I want to do with my life, even though that's a good question to ask, but it can be overwhelming because it can be too big. It was like, what do I want the next project to be? What do I want to jump into? And so, again, at that point, trying to figure out all of these things in this kind of transition period. And then that's also when this other relationship I had ended, which was a big part of my life. I shared in past video also a little bit, but it was really heartbreaking. It was very hard. But on the flip side, it was also I invested a lot of attention and time and energy in that relationship, and so when it was over, I found myself in this space where most of what I had been carrying for a while, anyways, was no longer there. This relationship and then my business, and so I found myself in this space where I had a lot of freedom in terms of attention and energy and time. And so I really started asking questions, even more so of like what do I really want? Like what's going to make me happy? What do I want to go after? And so digging deep into those questions and digging deep into the things I know that make me happy. I think most of us have an idea. We just forget because we get caught up in our lives, and we forget the things we put on the shelf. And so if we just stop and take a minute, or due to life circumstance, we have almost the forced minute, or we're just like, you know, a lot of the things we were busy with are no longer there, and so I found myself kind of in this place where I was looking at that wall and like, what have I shelved? What do I really want to go after? What have I learned over the last couple years as I continue to not only learn about new things, read books, do personal development, do kind of internal work, ask questions, diary, write, all these kind of things. So I was looking at that, and the one more part that kind of fits the equation that really set me on the path to determining moving to New Zealand was uh, my life was kind of rocky. A lot of the big in the other side, like, yes, I had the time freedom and the mental freedom, but then also dealing with the emotions of heartbreak and of losing that relationship, and also ending my business, which had been my life. So dealing with all of that. So this quite a bit of struggle, which led me to the content I was consuming was a lot more spiritual in nature. And I was listening to audiobook of Gabby Bernstein's Super Attractor. I'm a pretty woo person, but it was blowing my brains, which was good because I like when things make me uncomfortable because that means they're pressing my edge. So her book was even rubbing up on my beliefs of woo woo and like what's possible, and so I liked being impressed. And again, over the years, through almost trial and error and through screwing up enough times, realizing like the power of content, of books, of audiobooks, of podcasts, of whatever, is in action. So as I was listening, being uncomfortable, being pressed, instead of having ego, I acted, and I did the things she was talking about, and I experimented and I tried them, and got a lot of benefit out of that. So a lot of return on the investment of taking the action. And not to get too into it, but I was just opening myself up a little bit more to listening. And by that I mean listening to what the universe was providing. So, not that I was being passive by any means, but I was just not distracting myself, and not trying to make a decision, but rather just be open to the ideas, and allow my be in a receptive state to just see what comes up, and then follow these trains of thoughts and see where the rabbit holes go. And so the first thing that came through one day was that I wanted to travel in some respect. I've really loved traveling. All the backpacking experiences I've had overseas have been nothing short of life changing. I've always wanted to travel when I was young. And it's been a long time since I've been traveling anywhere, partially because I was trying to do this business, and that took up my entire focus and my entire life in a sense. So I knew that was a component that I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. On the flip side, I'll just say flat out, I don't really have the luxury to go backpacking and just to travel because my finances aren't in a good place. And so being focused that finances is an area of my life that I want to work on and improve limits that option. So I was like, okay, I can't just go backpacking and traveling. I need to still focus on generating wealth, getting my finances under control. Another reason I'll bring in, but I'll mention it because it's part of this, is that Cherry and I are planning to have kids in the not too distant future and start a family. And so finances is an important component of that. We have a couple years until we're planning to do that. So getting our finances under control. So yeah, so I was like, okay, then maybe I can work overseas. And I initially thought about travel guides. So there's a lot of tourism companies, especially in the ones I was thinking about are essentially youth tourism. So 18 to 35 is what these companies focus on, and it can be like anything from like a 7-day to a 21-day, and then you can combine these. So they do like trips in many different countries. um, everywhere. A lot of them are in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, that kind of stuff. I've never done one, but they seem interesting. Like, it's a good container. It's like you get to go with a group, especially a lot of, I think, people do these for their first travel experiences. And what's great is it's curated, so it's like part of the service these companies are providing is like wicked adventures. They know the spots. You know, you kind of get off the beaten path. Like, I'm sure you go see some of the main things, but you also get to go see like cool stuff that they've discovered through doing it long enough, and that's part of the equity they hold. So to run this service, they need a guide on the ground who's actually leading these groups of people. And so initially, I was looking into, and got actually, so I'm getting ahead of myself. Initially, I was looking into doing one of these jobs where my idea was I would live, say, in Thailand is the one I was thinking about. I would live in Thailand, and I would just run these groups through. And from my understanding, it's you basically do the same thing over and over and over from my perspective, and so you get good at it, you understand it. It's all about managing people and schedules and stuff, which is awesome. I like doing that. I like facilitating for people. It's very fulfilling. So a lot of the parts meshed for me. And a big thing was I got super excited, which is something I hadn't been in a long time, because again, focusing on the business is like I had blinders on essentially. And so this was the first time I got super excited and started taking action right away. So I started making a video that would be my application video. I was editing it. I was trying to make it really good. I was doing unique things. Like there's a site called Fiverr where you can hire people to do jobs, and usually it's inexpensive. And so I was like investing some money to get some whiteboard animations done that I could put in. Like, I was really trying to make a really good video to land this job, because I was like, this would be awesome. I could live in Thailand and do this thing. And then like the excitement never wore off, but I just kept like decompressing, thinking about it, going deeper into the rabbit hole. Like, okay, where does this go, and like what about all of these things excite me, and even though I'm excited by this idea, what are the pros and cons? And I basically discovered that one of the components of it that I didn't like is I felt it would be very transient. So it seemed like, from my reading the job descriptions and watching videos about other people who've done it, and looking at a bunch of different companies, that you're kind of always on the move, right? Like, I might have a home base, a place where I like have my stuff, but it's like constantly doing these trips, and even though I might be situated in Thailand, I might be doing trips in some of the adjacent countries as well. And it just, in terms of thinking from a financial lens, which I'm trying to get better at, because I want that to be a bigger priority, because I want to improve that area of my life, it didn't meet a lot of the requirements that I was wanting and almost needing to get better in this avenue. So I was like, okay. So I started looking at some other things, which was, I knew about this before because I had got a work visa for Japan. Is Canada's got about 35, 40 bilateral working holiday agreements with like 40 different countries. So what that means is most of them you have to be under 30 or 35. 35 is the cap for all of them, and depending on what country it's 30 or 35. But if you're under, they're easy to get a hold of. So they're working holiday visas, meaning anywhere from 6 months to New Zealand's 23 months, you can get these working holiday visas that let you go to these other countries and work and travel, and they're pretty inexpensive, like the visas themselves. The requirements, other than the age, are pretty easy. It's like you just have to have plane tickets, and each country has their own requirements on how much money you need to be able to get yourself set up. They don't want you to go broke while you're there. They want you to have enough money to like make the transition to finding some work and that kind of stuff. So I already knew about these existing, so I went and looked at all of the options again, and reignited my interest in actually going to Australia / New Zealand. It's something I had thought about before. Even Sherry and I, at one point in time, were actively planning to go to, I think it was Australia, is what we were working towards. It never ended up happening, but we were actively, that was the plan. And so looking at these, I was actually first Australia, because I wanted to go. But then looking at the visas, there was a major difference that made me lean heavy to New Zealand. Australia, you get a 12-month visa, and there's some requirements to which then you can get another 6-month extension, where New Zealand is a 23-month visa off the bat. And I really liked that because I like the time. Even though I might not stay there the whole 23 months, I've moved enough cities to know that generally it takes about a year to get settled in. And so I like the availability that spending a year in New Zealand is what I'm committing myself to, and then if I'm enjoying it and I've set up a bit of a structure and it's good, then I have basically a whole other year to leverage already being there and settled in to, further whatever I'm doing or working at or whatever goals I have. So that's really what pushed me heavy to New Zealand. And then I, did some research and looked at a bunch of things and found out I'm really excited. Like, it seems like an awesome place. Everyone's got good things to say about it in terms of, like, people are just friendlier, and it's a smaller, because it's an island, and just so many good things. So yeah, this is already a long video, and I only touched on kind of the all the pieces that came together to get me there. And so I'll leave it at that for today, and I'll probably do this tomorrow also. I'll hopefully kind of touch on some of the other points that really solidified all of these factors coming into play, which is why I'm moving. And so yeah, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.